Beta Upsilon Chi, Bucks, presents Man to Men, the premier audio journal for men who live faithfully and lead courageously. I'm Jared Musgrove. Today we welcome back Marty Solomon, author of the new book, The Gospel of Being Human. Marty also serves as the president of Campus Impact Ministries, and he's the creator and host of the immensely popular Bema podcast, which I highly recommend to you men. Marty, welcome back to Man to Men.
Thanks. It's good to be back. I always love being invited back. It means that, I can fool you once, but if you invite me back, that's shame on you. So there you go. I like it.
Man, you're on a very short list of return guests.
That's wonderful.
So it's just honor to get to talk to you. We talked a little bit previously when we visited just about, how I've been able to share Bema with so many guys in our ministry. I love that they get to discover what you're doing. Love that you've got the second book, and that's what we're going to talk about today. I wanted to ask first up, Marty, what stirred in you the desire to write the second book, The Gospel of Being Human? Was there a moment or a conversation or a question in your mind that led to this being birthed into existence?
Yeah, it's probably a building thing over time. There is a stream of consciousness that will really be 3 books by the time we're done. There's 3 books in the Asking Better Questions series.
Okay, trilogy.
Yeah, of
the
sorts.
Francis Schaeffer fan in me loves that.
I like that. It feels a little weird to say the word trilogy, but there are 3 books, and I guess that's what you'd call it.
Love it.
But yeah, there's always been a thing in me, a passion about Jesus asks us to become more loving people. And I think we struggle to do that and to be known for that in the world. And when I looked at the Christian world that raised me, some of those things made sense because our theology didn't facilitate more loving people. And the reason is our theology was built on bad readings of the Bible. So therefore, that's how the series used to work. We went back to the Bible to say, this is where it starts for us, because the scriptures are important. I think that's the part that my world got right, is the Jesus and the Bible part. So there's the Bible conversation, and there's a loving people conversation. But in the middle is this, if I read my Bible a little differently, if I ask better questions, if I maybe have a better reading, it should impact my theology, and that matters. And so this book is trying to get at that theology matters. And we're not trying to check it all out. We're not trying to rewrite the theology books, but we are trying to say, let's bring the same sense of curiosity, the same sense of asking questions, not just to our hermeneutics, but also to our work in theology, and to see if it helps make us better followers of Jesus.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I got to read some advanced words, really a copy of the book that's coming out here pretty soon. And this one I could feel a little more tension in this book than previously asking better questions of the Bible. This one felt a little more about your personal journey, some of your ministry. How did your own understanding of, as you put it, being human evolve as you got to the book and as you were writing it?
Yeah, I'm glad you felt that, and that is it's a hard question. I think somewhere, maybe in the introduction, somewhere I end up saying in the second book, the first book was kind of easy. It doesn't feel easy. There's all this Jewish stuff and chiasms and parallelisms and prophet tables and history and order of books and apocalyptic. It feels so dense.
Yes, but which you excel, part of your gift is making those things understandable. That's one thing I always appreciate about you. And I saw the work in the first book.
Yeah, I love that. And I do enjoy that. But at the same time, it's also the easy part, because you can hold that at an arm's length. You can talk about the chiasms and the Bible and the literary analysis, and it can still be cold and somewhat detached. But it's not meant to be. That reading is meant to change us. And so we're tapping into things that get at how I've been changed, or what I believe about who God is based on my own story. And so I do think this book, it was definitely harder to write. It was harder to publish. Everybody was okay talking about chiasms. We were fine doing Bible hermeneutics. But when we got to okay, but this is what those hermeneutics lead us to, or this is what it might then therefore mean. There was a lot more tension personally, and then for an audience, and for the theologians that read it. It's we did find that space. I think in a good, healthy way. We'll let the readers decide. I think we found a good that good balance of, okay, we said something because some of us are a little uncomfortable. So apparently we said something worth saying, but hopefully not too much, and hopefully not enough that people have to leave the room, but just enough that we can be like, okay, hold on, I'll look at that. And we're not assuming. I wrote this book with my good friend Reed, who's also a host on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And we are not assuming that we are talking about all of it or that we're even right about most of it, but we think having a conversation is always a good thing, makes us better.
Yes, it felt very conversational, just in the copy I got to read. And going back to this, you had mentioned really at the top of the podcast the way many of us were raised, particularly just kind of like focused theologically. A lot of us were raised, as I read in the book, with the belief that being human is the problem. That was a pretty compelling take to me. You suggest that being human might actually be the point. What do you mean by that, Marty?
Yeah. And ultimately, spoiler alert, it's probably a little bit of both at the end of the day. But yes, we have always been told that being human is bad news. Like we use the term that, well, I'm only human. And whenever we reference our humanity, it's about how we'll screw up and we'll make mistakes. And our humanity is always tied to our sinfulness. And we are not at any point in this book ever trying to reshuffle the deck away from, of course, we're sinners.
Yes.
We are sinners.
Yeah.
But our humanity is also more than that. Our humanity is also our image of Godness. Like God made us. Our humanity is a part of this creation that God loves.
Yeah, there's a lot of beauty to it.
Yes. And so, and I was just saying this recently, like my wife, my kids, they're sinners. There's no secret there. Like they're sinners.
And just like the husband and the dad, right?
That's right. Mm-hmm. But I don't relate to them primarily as sin. I've never forgotten that they're rebellious and they can be broken and sinful. But I relate to them as my beloved. Like they are. My wife is my lover, and my kids are I just love them to death. And of course, they're sinners, and that is a part of their reality. And sometimes I think that can get lost in our theology. It doesn't do away from the sinfulness or the need for redemption or any of those things, but there's a belovedness that we have to make sure we hang on to, because that does something to how we relate to God.
Oh man, I love that. What has been the cost in your view of leading with, particularly in teaching to Christians, with leading with the fact that we're fundamentally broken and unworthy? What you take some of that on in the book. I'd love for you to unpack some of that here.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, a lot of shame gets attached to just what it means to be us. And I don't think we even deal with this part of this story in the book. We do deal a lot with Genesis and Adam and Eve and some of those accounts. But one of my parts that I always think of in that story is God showing up and they say, well, we're naked. And he says, who told you were naked? Like, you've been naked this whole time. I made you that way. Right. And it was beautiful. But now you're ashamed of something that you've been. Nothing changed, but now you're ashamed of who you are. So who are you listening to? And so I think that shame leads to fear and insecurity. That fear and insecurity leads to a different kind of posturing against each other fellow human beings who are also beloved, who are also, which starts to get towards probably what will be the next book. But I mean, those relationships, the cost is, and I go, and I don't want to keep doing this in this whole interview, Jared, but I keep going back to my wife and my kids.
That's great. Fundamental human relationships is what God gave us.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. If they were to associate with me, sin first, if that's how they were to think of who they are in relationship to me, man, that would be a really screwed up relationship. It would break my heart. It would also just be super not healthy for them. And we know that, and I just wonder if there's more to that when it comes to how we relate to God than we may give it credit for. If that's true for my wife and my kids, how much more true is it between God and I?
No, well, and you touch on something there, and even what you're saying here, that I've been up against pastorally, where many times if you're meeting me, particularly just with a lot of men of all ages, they'll say, well, I'm an alcoholic, I'm a porn addict, I'm a bad husband. We lead with the sin, and you write about that kind of shame being a defining reality for many of us who follow Christ. What I wanted to start here, Marty, if you'll go here with me, what's helped you personally and pastorally move on from those shame narratives to a more holistic understanding of really who you are, that identity of redemption?
Yeah, I love that question because I think I've never really sat down and given time to how this shaped even what I wrote in the book. I mean, therapy and spiritual direction. My therapists have been unbelievably helpful because I have narcissistic tendencies. I have tendencies to become a really destructive leader or a really destructive man. And good therapy has helped me. And the answer to that has always been you act dysfunctionally because you're scared, but you don't have to be scared because you're loved. So connecting me back again to my belovedness has been part of what helps me reframe so much of those shame narratives in my own life. Um, and I hadn't even thought until you framed that question that way. But it's been super helpful in that regard to do that. And I feel like I had something else I was going to say, but that question actually caught me so off guard. I can't even remember. It's wonderful.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
beautiful. Hey, thank you for entering in and doing some spiritual direction
Yeah.
and work with just, few
Yeah.
thousand fellow brothers
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No problem. No big
Yeah.
deal.
Well, and let's take it out and maybe talk to some of those brothers as we're just sitting here, going into the depths. How can we as Christian men talk about sin in a way that doesn't collapse our identity into it?
Oh, yeah. And that
How do we
you
remain
actually
honest about it without
yeah.
becoming hopeless?
Yep. And you just reminded me of what it was I was going to say with that question. Like I think we say this somewhere in the book, like, uh, there is the reality part is that, say, somebody might say, I've committed adultery. The shame part says, I'm an adulterer, where now the mistakes that I've made or the sin I've engaged in now becomes my identity rather than something that I have done. When you properly know where your identity is, that is actually what allows me to for me, it's my narcissistic whatever. Like I can look that in the face and call that what it is, and I don't have to run from it. It's also not who I am. If it's who I am, it's a big ball of weird theological wax that we got to pull apart. But if I know that I'm beloved, I can look at my mistakes and say that was something I did. This is the impact that it had on people. This is what I need to do about it. But if I find my identity in those mistakes, it becomes very hard to talk about it, and it's awkward for us as we're trying to help our brothers because this is who I am, and we're trying to help them deal with something that's important. But we also know that they're like, wait, that's not right. So our belovedness helps us have better conversations about, I know this is who I am and who God made me to be, but over here, I did not live that out. I did not live in my identity. I did something else. And that enables us to have like, because that's an easier conversation to have. We can say, yeah, Bob, like you're not that. You're this other thing. And you can call out who somebody is and talk objectively about those moments where we fall short of what we'd like to be.
Right. Saying that's not the man I've come to know.
Yeah.
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 I've received that gift from many brothers who, it's like, man, in a few moments, I wasn't the man you've come to know. And that has been a gift they've given to me. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the gospel of being human builds on, as you even mentioned in the previous book, asking better questions of the Bible. How do better questions help us live a more honest and faithful life, man?
Yeah. We start the book with a chapter that talks a lot about curiosity and attention and wonder. And we did that because I think those things are fundamentally about what it means to be human. God made us as human beings as curious creatures. That curiosity can go one of two directions. We talk in that same chapter about puzzles versus mystery.
Yes.
Like we tend to make everything into a puzzle to be solved. There's a serotonin dump. There's a dopamine hit. I don't know what it is, but I'm no brain scientist. But there's something that we get rewarded for solving a puzzle. Mysteries can be uncomfortable, but they also are far more robust and lead us into far more color and wonder and bring us closer to the thing that God's trying to show us half the time. I
More
think.
about
So
exploration.
yes, absolutely. So it's that same. So in the first book, we talked about those better questions on a hermeneutical level because these Bible stories are what like so deeply shape us. And there's a process, there's a method to asking better questions as a study. But then there are questions underneath those questions. There are questions behind those questions of, okay, let's be even more curious. Let's pay more attention to what's the theological question behind this. hermeneutical question. If that's what Paul's trying to say to the church in Philippi, what's the theological better question I should be asking that really gets to who I am and what I'm supposed to be in the world?
Absolutely.
So I think it's that continual curiosity, that pressing for more, always being curious, turning over another stone, paying attention to things that don't make sense. And it just helps us be who we ought to be.
Absolutely. I love that you opened the book that way, because I have come to realize that our curiosity is a God-given gift. And in fact, when I'm not leaning into my curiosity, it's usually a signal. This, I'm just speaking for me. Maybe it'll hit some other guys. It usually means that I'm leaning into my ego.
Yeah.
That I actually am kind of putting myself in the place of God, saying, "Oh, I know all this. I don't have to be curious.
Yep.
I've got this figured out." And that makes me a less humble person. It certainly crushes humility. Sorry, now I'm doing the counseling session. See how this goes? Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. That's good.
But I love how you encourage us to ask questions. Here's a pushback that I've gotten sometimes as I try and lead some guys down this way and even recommend them to your work. What if my asking questions leads to, the big term right now is deconstruction of my belief? And you address some of that in the book. This may be something that even some of our listeners are experiencing right now.
Yeah.
What does a faithful, hope-filled, air quotes, deconstruction look like to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a lot of, sometimes it's helpful, sometimes it's a waste of time to try to define terms. Because for a lot of us, when we hear deconstruction, we think of the word destruction. Like, we think deconstruction is synonymous with destroying our faith, walking away from it. And that's fine. And the word doesn't have to be used. If it's unhelpful for anybody, they should just find better words to talk about it. I do believe there's something about being able to look at our faith and kind of take it apart and look at the parts of it. And we find that there's a couple parts that have been corroded and a couple parts we don't even know how they got we could probably get rid of those. We don't know how they got in here. But most of these parts are good. We're going to end up putting them back together. There's a reconstruction that happens with the deconstruction. And the opening and closing chapter of the book, there's a cathedral that I visit that kind of serves as the open, kind of the bookend illustration. I know I'm going to say that, and everybody's going to think my book's a chiasm. It's not, as far as I'm aware. But there's an illustration. That you were able
to pull that off.
There's an illustration about an old cathedral I visited in Scotland while I was writing the book, and it was under reconstruction. And a big part of what they were having to do was pull the building apart because it had these iron bars, these iron reinforcements that over time actually were hurting the building. So something that was essential to its construction needed to be removed later so that the building could remain.
Yeah, even something that was of its time.
Yes, 100%. And I thought that was just a really apt illustration. Our theologies were built on purpose, not for evil intentions. And at the time, maybe not even littered with a bunch of, but now, maybe today, there are parts we need to pull apart so that we can put these same theologies back together in a way that survives for the next generation and the next few centuries. But that will probably always be a dynamic thing of a healthy, growing, vibrant faith.
Right. And sometimes can even lead to just some, division, disagreement. So in a world, Marty, that feels like we're constantly kind of fighting each other, particularly even in the church world, what does it look like to actually live as a people, seeing each other as made in God's image, to see others that way as well?
Yeah, a lot of that's probably going to be great fodder for the next book, because that is almost exactly what we're wanting to talk about.
That's good.
Talking about next. On some level, I think always remembering that if I'm beloved, so are they. Curiosity, attention, and wonder leads to the humility you were just referencing. Heck, if I know, what are the things that I'm missing? Maybe I see part of the picture, but not the whole picture. Maybe I'm not even seeing the part that I think I see correctly. Curiosity, attention, and wonder makes me think and then think again, look and then re-examine. So it's that when I stop being curious, I stop making room and space for those people that disagree. There's a real good chance I'm getting a bunch of things wrong. So as long as we can figure out how to break bread together, to find that Eucharistic place within the body of Christ where I don't know, but you probably don't know. So let's not know together, and let's find a new identity in Jesus, and we'll figure it out. That disagreement actually is a defining mark of what the gospel looks like when we live it out together, I think.
Man's Men is made possible in part by our partners at Southern Seminary. Guys, when your ministry calling is serious, the people who prepare you matter. At Southern Seminary, you'll study under pastors, scholars, and faithful leaders who've guided generations of gospel ministers. They are known for teaching God's word with clarity and for living it out with integrity. If you're ready to be trained by trusted faculty for a lifetime of faithfulness, start your MDiv at Southern Seminary. Visit sbts.edu/MDiv. That's good. What about for those times where we are in a sense anti-gospel, even just the gospel of being human? You write that misunderstanding our humanity and the humanity of others could lead to misunderstanding God ultimately. Could you unpack a little bit more of that?
Oh yeah.
Going
really
deep
good.
here. I mean, this is great.
No, small little
love
question
living
there. Yeah, I love that. I think a great example of this we talk about in the book is one of my favorite passages where I call it the 1003 passage, where God comes to Moses and he says, "Listen, I am Adonai. I'm compassionate and gracious. Excuse me, slow to anger and abounding in love and faithfulness and truth. I show love to 1,000 generations of those that love me, and I repay sin to 3 generations of those that hate me." And then that passage gets used kind of throughout the Hebrew scriptures at different key moments and different key points. But this, I was always raised in a Christianity that told me that God is an equal balance of love and wrath, love and holiness. But that holiness really was connected to the idea of his need to be wrathful. And maybe everybody didn't have, but I did. I had that experience. And God has this, I'm just not sure it's a very biblical idea. And that's a question I pose in the book. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like God very clearly says it's not 1,000 to 0, by the way. It's not 1,000 to 0. It's not love and no wrath. But it's 1,000 to 3. And I think if we have the wrong idea of what it means to be human, and we project that onto our theology, that God becomes somebody pretty different. That God becomes a God that we're pretty fearful of, because it's 50-50, and I got to make sure I've said the right prayer, done the right things, been on the right stuff, or else this could go either way. And instead, finding a God, I'm a God of love. And that doesn't mean that you are not a sinner. It doesn't mean you're off the hook. And it doesn't mean there's no consequences. And it doesn't mean there's no 3. But I really want you to know what it means that I am a God of love and grace, and I'm slow to anger. I'm not impossible to anger. I'm slow to anger. And I want you to see that. Yeah.
And that's really good and helpful for the soul. A lot of things are coming together for me, even as I listen to you, because that 50-50 approach that a lot of us just kind of have mentally, or wherever we learned it from, or maybe we created it ourselves, it can make me feel as a man spiritually stuck. And even sometimes it's like, well, what does my life matter?
Right.
You know,
Yep.
you kind of just become almost just a nihilist in some ways. What does your book, this book, say to the man who's asking, well, great, do I even really matter to God?
Right. Yeah. I mean, one of the things, if we see it's not just our theological belovedness that we're trying to pull out in our theology. It's also the part that what is being human. Where does being human fit in God's larger thing? Because it's one of the things we say in the podcast all the time. God is looking for partners. Do you matter? Yes. And I don't even know from God's position why he even chooses to do it this way. Because I don't think he necessarily needs us, but he certainly keeps insisting that he wants to. So for whatever reason, there is this thing that God's like, I want to do this together. I want to do this together. Woo. Absolutely. And it's not connected to, I want to do this together, and don't get it wrong, because if you get it wrong, everything falls apart. No. It's going to be fine. It's God's thing. But he wants to do it, and I don't have to get it. It's this adventure. It's this adventure of, I'm going to do my best, knowing that God's there, knowing that all we can do is do our best. And that's enough for God. He's like, yep, you're going to screw this up, but I got you. And I think when I think about what it means to to be a man and fellowshipping with other men. We got to push ourselves. We almost have to incentivize ourselves to find ways to fail in healthy ways,
Oh
not
no.
sinful ways, but like incentivize. If you're not failing, we are not pushing ourselves hard enough. We're not out there trying to figure out who God is and what he's asking us to do in the world. Get out there in healthy ways and find the spots where if God doesn't show up, we're in trouble, because we gotta find that partnership space, and don't play it safe.
And I think that's where a lot of men do eventually get stuck, and they feel like they want to give up. They've given up on that adventure.
Yeah.
No longer curious, no longer in on the mystery. What would you say to a man who feels like he's in that place where he wants to give up? Maybe not on life, but on church. Maybe take a break from the faith thing. It's like, man, this just is not working for me right now. How would you walk him back to the better story that you guys are talking about all the time?
Oh man, I would just say, if you could see the part that you play from any of these other perspectives, like if you could see the part that you play in this world from people that love you and care about you, and that may feel like a short list to you, or it might not, I don't know, but there's a list of people that know who you are and know that you're in this world, and golly, it's a big deal to them. If you knew even just creation itself, the part that you play because God's called you and wired you, or given you some opportunity to do something. I just met people at my speaking engagement last night who were, let's see, what did they do? They, oh man, they were blue collar. What were they doing? I'm going to forget now, Jared, but they just did the standard.
Was it their profession or?
Yeah, just their profession, what they do 9 to 5 was just like they're running cable. And yet, if we didn't have people running cable, doing the things that they do every single day, we wouldn't have like the world itself, the way that we order and steward the work that we do, the creative work that we do, the vocational work we do. It matters. Or just God's perspective. Like you matter. You're not just a random cog that has no impact. You play such a part in this world relationally, vocationally, spiritually. There are so many people that when they think of you, they smile. And that's enough. You don't have to go conquer the world. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to nail everything down. Just waking up, punch and play, showing up into a space is enough. If that's all you've got, that's enough. And there will come seasons where you have so much more than that, and you're giving everything you got, and it's awesome, and you're pumped. But even on those days where all you do is wake up and show up, waking up and showing up is a pretty big deal for a lot of us. Keep doing it.
Man, you reminded me of one of my favorite non-biblical stories, the story of George Bailey in It's a Wonderful Life. Very
yes.
Much. Yeah.
Oh, man, if only Reed was on this episode, my co-author. He and Brent did a Christmas episode on the podcast about It's a Wonderful Life, and they had so much fun with that.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, he would go, I'm not equipped. He would go crazy if he heard you ask that question. He would talk to you for the next hour. Absolutely.
I need to have him on. That's literally, that's my favorite film of all time.
Oh, he would love it. Absolutely love it. That's great.
No, it's fun. And, like one of the things that's true in your teaching, and certainly in the Bible, even in It's a Wonderful Life, and maybe the guys got into this on that podcast. I'll have to go back and re-listen to it. I remember when they did it, and I fanboyed out. But one thing that's true about all of those stories, both real and imagined, is that there is a community of love and restoration at the center of those stories. What have you seen as far as men are concerned, as far as building those communities of love and restoration, especially as just men are navigating, it feels like more loneliness and questions and pressure than ever? What are you seeing from your perspective?
Oh, goodness. Well, you just nailed one of the things, that was coming to mind, and that is the loneliness, the relationships. The other thing is this, whatever you want to call it, the search for masculinity. And what does it mean to be masculine in a world where we don't even know anymore? And it feels like we got all these weird, really broken options on both ends of the spectrum. And yet a big part of it is to tap into that, like at the center of this cosmos, of this universe that God's created, is this love that's like, I'm doing my graduate work at a Jesuit Ignatian Catholic institution. And this idea of, absolutely. This idea of God's belovedness being at the heart of creation. And there's something about it's part of why the loneliness, like you're wanting to tap into um uh to those relationships. But there's also this, I'm trying to remember, I got talking about the Jesuit institution. I totally blanked on where I was headed with that.
That's right. We were talking about
The
men,
masculinity.
loneliness. Yeah.
Yes. What it means to be like, what is masculinity if it's not protecting, providing, caring for, stewarding? I was just talking to Brant Hansen not too long ago. He gave the illustration of um, a great image of what it means to be a masculine man as a gardener, like taking care of a garden.
Oh, I'm thinking Genesis
And
2 immediately. Work it, keep it.
100%,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. And I just think that idea. What is that if it's not the same energy we're talking about? The love, the care. This thing about what it means to be a man is what it means to be a little piece of God, a little representation of, a little reflection, a little image of God in the world. Because that's what God does. He loves us, cares for us, He stewards us, He shepherds us, and we get to do that for our wives, for our children, for our friends, for the world that we work in, for our colleagues, for our fellow students. That's what it means. It's what it means to be a man in the world, and it is connected to these bigger ideas.
Oh, it's so good. You're reminding me where I was in Proverbs 3 just recently, and the charge there from the Father to the Son is, do not withhold good if it's within your power to give it. And that word power, man, I can't remember the Hebrew right now, but it basically is like, hey, it's in like your God given power, like almost like image of God kind of stuff. That reminds me
Yeah,
very much of what you're talking about right now.
yeah,
It's
absolutely.
just all
Yeah,
over. Yeah, and I think I remember from it was the podcast or somewhere. It's like wisdom literature is not quite your jam, but
it's growing on me. Reed has had that impact on me. The more I hang out with Reed, the more he's like Psalms, Proverbs, wisdom. It's good stuff, and I'm like,
friends
yeah,
are
it
great
actually
for that,
is.
man.
I
Yeah,
know they
yeah.
are. That's wisdom literature tells us that. I should know better.
I can hear the influence already. That's fun. That's fun. No, I love Proverbs is the place I spend the most time in. That and Samuel are
Yeah.
probably my two books I spend the most time in.
Man, yeah, you got the wrong guy on this podcast. That's all true for Reed too. So, man, you got to get
Mm,
him on here, and you guys would have
okay.
a ball because that is exactly who he is and what he loves. Those exact books you just listed. Yep,
Okay, great. Man, I need to hang out with Reed then. We can talk Jimmy Stewart movies and ancient Israel wisdom literature. Yeah.
100%.
Well, I'm not done talking to you yet, Marty. I'm enjoying the conversation. I want to again take it to a personal point here. Just what's one thing you used to believe about being human that has changed or that you no longer do out of that belief?
Well, I'll tell you the one that I didn't. I believed deep down, and I wouldn't have even thought that I believed it. And somewhere deep down inside of me, and I won't bore you with all my personal details, but I learned this in therapy. It goes back to when I was a little kid, about 9 years old, maybe even before. Like somewhere I picked up that I have to perform. I have to I have to be good enough. I have to be the best. I have to be worth something materially, because the moment that I fail, everybody's going to leave me.
Yeah.
God's going to leave me.
Right.
Relationships are going to leave me.
Mm.
I'm only worth something to this story because I'm successful. I might be able to, maybe I can make a little bit of mistakes here, maybe, but I mean, they got little, because I've got to be, and that does something to a person, and that makes a person really dangerous, because you're just trying to, at any cost, not fail, at any cost, succeed. And you start running over people, and you start running over things that you shouldn't run over. And so that's what I used to believe about me and what it meant for me to be human. And I've had to learn that's not true about who I am. It's not true. That's not where I find my value. It's not true about the relationships that are most important to me. They're not going to leave me if I fail.
Mm.
Um, and probably I've learned that I even projected that onto other people, and I've had to learn as a leader, as a CEO, as a boss, as a supervisor. I did a an exercise a few years ago where I asked all of my fellow executives on my team to like give me I want you to tell me what my blind spots are. I need you to tell me what I don't see. Because obviously I don't see it. That's the whole point. But you do. Tell me about the things that I don't see from my perspective. And one of the things that almost the whole team said in different language, but the language that came together was triggered by other people's incompetence. And I went, oh, to hear that, I was just like, oh, that my coworkers and teammates would experience that from me. I had taken the same weight of performance and I had projected it on other people. And they're just as beloved as I am before God, before relationships that matter, and they ought to be before me. And failure is not, that's not the thing that defines our relationship or their performance and their worth as a staff member or anything else. So those are things that, man, that sneaks in. We really think that we're worth something because of what we can accomplish. And and accomplishing stuff is great, and God wants to partner with us, but that's not where our worth is. It's not where our worth is. Yeah,
bro. Thank you for that. Like that, I think that was worth the price of the podcast admission.
Good.
I got this picture of, I think it's in Leviticus 8, where they're instituting the priesthood, and the priest has to go up in front of everybody and be stripped and washed and just admit, hey, this is who I am, and it's ugly and it needs redemption. And that's a powerful gift to give people. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for sharing that, man.
Yep. Yeah. Somehow we get to do that for each other. And that reminds us of everything we're talking about, the good news of what it means to be human, because we are broken but it's also very much okay.
Amen. You're a man of the book. Obviously you spend a lot of time in the Bible. There's a lot of Bible in the book. Is there a Bible passage or passages that hit different for you after doing the work of writing this book in particular?
Oh man, after writing this book, probably things like there's a whole chapter at the very end on the Romans road, which is probably me being when I wrote that rough draft, it was probably spicier than it needed to be. Okay. Luckily, I have a lot of good publishing editors and
editors are great at tamping that down.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the time we were done, I think I just had a newfound this theology is not all bad. And if I let my frustration and my anger get the best of me, where I keep trying to find any ounce and iota of this stuff to rid it from my, I'm going to end up with just as much of a tainted, slanted, incomplete view as what I'm frustrated with. And so I think I just appreciate the larger community of, that's what faith is. Faith is never done in a vacuum. Not just me, and not even just me and Reed, but with the work of others that help. All right, how do we have a good conversation about this? Because we're missing something, but that doesn't mean that everything we're dealing with needs to be tossed out, deconstructed, rejected, thrown in the trash. No. So I think that's part of, I don't know if there's a story, but that's one that comes to mind of. And that's probably reflected in all the other stories too. But that particular chapter was probably just a helpful exercise for me.
Yeah, that's one thing I love that you guys model so well on Bema is doing theology in community, leading the rest of us to ask good questions. What's an honest question you think every Christian man should ask of the Bible?
So what? What does it mean? What does it mean for me? What difference does it make? There's some point in the Bible where we talk about a rabbi that talks about, I had a teacher that had a rabbi say the difference between how Christians and Jews read the Bible is Christians read the Bible looking for truth, and Jews read the Bible looking for meaning. And we have a tendency to just strip mine Bible stories for truth units.
Oh no.
And this idea of reading the Bible. Yeah, absolutely. But truth for what? Truth and what? Truth and so what? What difference does any of this make? How am I different because of any of these truth statements or experiences within this story? So I just think the question of so what? We often read the Bible so that I know the story. We read the Bible so that I know that it happened. We read the Bible so that I might know that what I believe is right. But what's the so what of any of those things? I think is a really good question to always have in front of us.
Oh man. Beautiful soul, Marty Solomon. The book is The Gospel of Being Human. Marty, where can we find the book? What date does it release? And where can we follow your continued work with Bema?
It's set to be out early April. You can find it. You can pre-order it on Amazon right now. You can always find any of our work in my books at martysolomon.com. martysolomon.com/books would be the books in particular. And you can find it there and other places to pre-order it. But yeah, it's out and available. Should release early April.
So good. So good. Well, I think you're going to have a few extra readers out of this one, Marty. Thanks for joining us again on Man to Man.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jared.
Man to Man is powered by Beta Upsilon Chi, commonly referred to as Bucks. What if I told you that one of the most spiritually transformative places on a college campus might not be a church program or a campus ministry, but a fraternity? That's Bucks. Everywhere, every day, Bucks men and alumni are raising families, leading in organizations, and strengthening churches to impact our communities for Christ. You can find out more about Beta Upsilon Chi by transliterating our Greek letters and adding a .org. That's byx.org. For Beta Upsilon Chi, I'm Dr. Jared Musgrove with Man to Man.